Make a motion to adopt tonight's agenda. I would like to add the supplemental payment summary to the bills list and add item F, inspection services agreement, to the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to adopt an amended agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. Okay, for our first item on the agenda is a housing study presented by Ms. Karen Skepper, Anoka County Director of Community and Government Relations. Hello, how are you?
Good evening, Mayor. I'm very good tonight, thank you.
I'm anxious to hear what you have to tell us.
Well, good. I've taken about a 280-page report and boiled it down to about 25 slides for you.
That's much appreciated.
Aaron has a draft of the report. We are asking staff to do reviews of the full report. We found some typos in it, and we want to make sure that everything is accurate in there. Once it's finalized, we want to make this kind of our gift to you. You can use it if you're meeting with developers. You can use it internally. You can use it for planning. But it will become a document that we want to share with you fully.
Great, thank you.
All right. With that, I'm just going to nod my head, and Aaron will. There's one right there. Great. This whole report really boils down to there's really robust growth in Anoka County. There's robust growth in the entire Twin Cities, but we're seeing a lot of growth here in Anoka County. No surprise to anyone in this room, there are still labor shortages. There's an extremely tight rental market. Currently, we're seeing about a 2.3% vacancy rate. A 5% vacancy rate is considered healthy. So we are in an unhealthy area. We've got not enough housing for people. If you have bought a house recently, you know that the cost of buying a house has gone up significantly, partly due to interest rates, but also due to demand. The affordability of housing has been decreasing over the last decade, especially for persons who are low or moderate income. And in the world I'm working in, that's anyone who falls at 80% area median or below. For a family of 4, that is usually somewhere in the 60,000 range, so it's a lot of households. There is a strong demand for all types of housing. And across Anoka County, we see a demand in the next decade for about 18,000 new units. Next slide, thank you. As I mentioned, the Twin Cities metro area has been adding households. Even though we suffered through a pandemic and people didn't move a whole lot during that time, there's still a very, very strong growth. There are shortages for the in-person service industries. That's expected to continue for some time now. Here in Anoka County, we've seen a strong demand for new rental housing, and we're seeing it happen. It's the first time in about 20 years that new developments of affordable housing have been happening across the county. We do need to see more production, especially in the more rural areas, in order to be able to serve all of our residents. And as we look at both general occupancy, which is housing for families, single persons, etc., we see a need of about 8,200 units. And there's also, on top of that, a need for about 4,500 units of senior housing. We're looking at those two segments separately because I'll break them out later in the report. Next slide. In the senior housing demand area, for market rate, and that's whatever competitively can be charged for rent, we see a need of about 2,700 units. In the affordable range, which means there may be a shallow subsidy. The Anoka County HRA has 4 senior housing buildings. We have a very shallow subsidy there because we're not profit motivated. So it's something that's affordable to many people still. There's about 1,200 units that we need to see developed. And in the subsidized arena, where we're really serving the lower income persons, we need to see about 660 units across the county. So we just know that this is such an incredibly growing area. Next slide. And you'll see I'm going to flip-flop back and forth in my presentation between housing and the jobs markets because they're so intertwined. Here in Anoka County, we are a job exporter, meaning that more of our residents in the county leave the county to go to work than those that stay in the county. Most people who leave go to Hennepin County or Ramsey County. Now, we do have some jobs that come in. I'm one of them. I don't live in Anoka County anymore, but I drive to Anoka County every day. So I'm one of the people who's being imported every day. The median income, household income in Anoka County is $90,000, but the average wage paid here in Anoka County was $64,000. That's the key reason why we are a job exporter. You can go out to Hennepin or Ramsey County and probably make more money. However, our rents here tend to be a little bit lower, so that brings people to live here no matter where they work. The one exception to that is new construction. In some of the newer rental units, multifamily units, the rents have been very high, and that's because the economy is allowing it, and it's healthy to have all ranges of housing in your community. Unfortunately, our Anoka County workers cannot afford these higher new market rates for the multifamily units. Next slide. That means we've got a lot of cost burden renters. Cost burden for most of us many years ago was if you paid more than 25% of your household income for housing. Over the years, that's shifted up. Now it's 30%. And in sometimes when we do analyses where you go as high as 35% of your income should go to housing and utilities. For this case, we're using 30% as that guideline. In Anoka County, 42% of the renters that live here are paying more than 30% of their income towards housing. That's a huge number of cost-burdened households. 22% of the renters are paying more than half of their income for housing. On average, our renter households make less than $35,000 a year, which means that 82% of them are cost-burdened and 60% of them are severely cost-burdened. I'm going to shift over to homeowners now. This is something we never talked about. We just didn't think about a homeowner, someone who owns their property, being cost-burdened. But it's happening now. 18% of all homeowners in Anoka County are cost-burdened. They're paying more than that 30% of their household income towards their mortgage and their utilities, their costs to maintain that home. 6% of the people who own their homes in Anoka County are severely cost-burdened. That means that more than half of their income is going to live in that house. Again, for those making $50,000, those numbers go up higher yet. There's only one solution. Well, there's two: higher wages or lower housing costs. It's hard to lower the cost of housing today because construction is so expensive. So we're really hoping that we're going to be able to find better jobs and create higher paying wages here in Anoka County. Go to the affordable housing production. Currently, there are 3,000 affordable units in Anoka County that are income restricted. My 4 senior buildings through the HRA, they're all income restricted at the time someone moves in. Once they live there, we don't look at incomes again. There's many buildings across the county similar to this. We would need another nearly 2,000 affordable or subsidized units right now to meet our demand. I'm sorry, for the demand in 2030. That's a lot of units that would have to have a subsidy attached to them. This means about 150 to 200 units per year need to be developed across the county that would meet this income range. Nobody's going to be able to do it alone. The Public entities can't do it, private entities can't do it alone. We have to work together. And there are programs, there are ways for us to partner with each other to get some affordability into some units. There is increasing demand for products other than single-family homes and apartments. The townhome market has skyrocketed, and we're now starting to see some small lot developments where you might have for sale homes on very small lots, but there's community amenities. Those are trends that we're starting to see. Nobody's telling any city what they should do. We're just providing you with what the communities are, what possibilities there are out there. And we are hearing more and more from developers who really do want to develop these small lot, luxury style townhomes or home ownership opportunities in communities. Next slide. And we have an aging baby booming generation. I know I'm one of them, and I'm starting to look at what my next steps are.
You're too young to be one of them.
Oh, no, I'm not.
We're in that group.
No, I fit into that group. This is a very high growth population. There's a lot of us still in the workforce, and we're all looking at what is our next step. I know that I'm probably not going to want to maintain a large single-family home once
Right.
I'm fully retired. So we have to be able to think ahead and identify what type of products should we be developing to make sure that these seniors or near seniors are not going to leave our community and go elsewhere to find the products that they want. We know from looking at other communities that villas, townhomes, other types of projects that don't have all the yard maintenance and the snow shoveling are really desirable.
Single level too.
Oh, yeah.
No
No
split
doubt
levels.
about that.
Yeah.
No split levels, no 18 steps straight up to the second floor.
Nope.
They're really attractive, but they don't work well. The other thing that we know is our household size is shrinking. We went from having 5 people in a household to 2 people to quite often in this age group 1 person. You can go to the next slide, Erin. On the home sales side, the median resale price in the Twin Cities for a single-family home was $416,000. This was done in 2023, the study was done. That's up 46% from 2018. If we were selling and not having to repurchase, you might have made a lot of money. But if you had to repurchase, you probably put all of that profit right back into your next property. Anoka County had the second lowest median resale price in the metro area at just $378,000. Again, these numbers are just way up there.
Yeah.
Time that a property sits on the market continues to be counted in the days, not the months. Several years ago, I put a property on the market. It sold the day I posted it, and I had 13 offers on it. That's how fast houses are moving. Even though we've had higher interest rates, it's very typical to see 3, 4, 5 days on the market if it's a desirable property. New construction in the Twin Cities, the median price is $500,000. Again, now I'm going to flip back in my mind to those people that are cost burdened. How are they ever going to be able to afford this? We've got to figure out a way to attract these families that can pay these higher construction prices, have them in our communities, and still keep the people who are in our communities today. Next slide. Household growth. Pen on the floor. The household growth for Anoka County is expected to grow by more than 10% over the next decade. The population growth is expected to be 8.7%. Household and population don't always correlate because you may have multiple people living in a household. You may have a single person buying a property. The cities with the highest proportional rates of household growth, and that's, again, that household growth, not people in the household, have been Hilltop, Ramsey, St. Francis, and Lino Lakes. That's because they've been doing multifamily. Next slide. The average Aaron, I think you've got my longer version there. If you don't mind, I'm just going to read from my notes and make this shorter so we don't take a whole hour to do the whole presentation.
Whatever you like.
We asked Maxfield Research, a reputable, well-known company here in the Twin Cities area, to do this study for us. They looked at our population, all of the trends, and really helped us come up with the information that we're presenting today. They're able to show us that in the 2000s, we added over 15,000 households to our population base. Just between 2010 and 2020, we added 12,000. So there was a lot of growth right there in that decade. Blaine was the largest growing community, and Blaine and Ramsey both tied for that proportional growth. I'm going to skip over household size because I want to stay in a time limit here. Here in Anoka County, our average household size is 2.8 people. This is on the higher end of the metro. Most of the metro has about a 2.55 people in the household average. We're expected to stay stable at this number through 2030. And younger families will start to offset older families living in our communities. So we're gonna, right now I think we've got a little slightly older communities, and we're gonna start seeing that big influx of younger people. I'm going to skip over household income because that has already been covered. I thought this one was really interesting though. 89% of Anoka County households did not move in 2021. People aren't moving, not at the rates that we think that they are. Of the people that moved, 5.4% stayed in Anoka County, and maybe left the city they were in, but they stayed in Anoka County. Of younger residents, they're the ones who are going to be moving the most. 20% of those aged 25 to 34 moved in the last year, compared to just 5% of people aged 75 and up. That's going to help me build a case later for senior housing. Public school enrollment is a key indicator of how many families you have in your community. Our school districts in Anoka County have, by and large, been showing decreases in enrollment. So we don't have as large of families, and in some cases, there's not as many households with children in the school districts. We did have 2 districts that had an increase in enrollment, Centennial and Spring Lake Park school districts. The steepest declines were Fridley and St. Francis. So looking forward, Blaine is expected to remain the largest city in the county through at least 2040. In 2023, the largest adult age group were persons aged 35 to 44. They accounted for 14% of our population. The majority of our population identifies their race as being white. The second largest racial group is Black or African American, making up 8% of the population. We do expect to see household incomes grow. We expect to see it go from 90,000 in 2023 to about 106,000 in 2028. So those jobs are coming. We've got them starting. We're starting to see those increases in wages. 81% of Anoka County people or households own their housing. Oak Grove has the fewest number of renters, and Anoka has the highest amount of renters. 39% of our households renting in Anoka County are estimated to have only one person living in the household. And 38.5% have at least 2 people living in the household. 70% of our households are families. And of the major cities in Anoka County, and these are usually the ones of 10,000 or more or close to that number, Lino Lakes has the highest median net worth, and Anoka had the lowest median net worth. Our employment trends. In 2000, Anoka County had 110,000 jobs. The number of jobs had decreased during the pandemic and the recession from a high of it decreased to 106,000 jobs. However, the job economy has recovered and is doing well. So we had from 110,000 down to 106. We're now back up to 113,000 jobs. In 2020, there was a record number of unemployment claims filed in the spring. Lockdown required non-essential workers to stay home. We all know this drill. However, between 2020 and 2022, Anoka County bounced back with employment increasing by 15%. So it just really shows, all the markers are showing that we've done a good job of recovering. One thing that we did differently in this year's study, we do this study about once every 10 years. The last time we did the study, we broke the county into 5 different regions and had some general recommendations for each region. This time we decided to go a step further and we broke it down by city. So the study did actually look at East Bethel and came up with some potential recommendations. We know that you've added some new market rate rental housing and some senior housing. These have been really well received and the absorption rate has been good, meaning that they're filling up quickly. The addition of single family housing at higher density has helped increase your growth. Your for sale housing, there are currently, at the time the study was done, that information was from 2023, so this may have changed. There were 33 vacant lots and 87 future lots for single family. It was identified that there were 14 multifamily lots available. We know that there's a need to increase the lot supply over the next 24 months. You should never have more than 2 years or less than 2 years of lot supply in order to have that healthy balance. This is just like that vacancy rate of 5%. It's nothing that Aaron may have been talking about with you. This is just in a healthy market. Cluster housing on smaller lots could help target entry-level home buyers to your community, and those home buyers do tend to stay within the community. On the rental housing side, there is demand for 83 rental units to be built sometime in the next decade or so here in East Bethel. And this is fairly conservative given that the absorption rate at recent developments has been so quick and so fast. We would certainly encourage you to look at additional products for renters, probably in the low and medium density areas, so that might be townhouses or these small lot developments. There is still a need for senior housing. There's currently a demand for 159 units of active adult. That's the seniors my age who come and go and want to be on their own. They want to have their own apartment. They don't need a lot of help from the building. There is, although, a need for 70 units of service-enriched housing. That's your assisted living, your memory care, where the services are really an important component to keeping that person in your community in their apartment. And we would certainly recommend focusing on the higher need here, which is that active adult market. That's where, if we were helping you make some decisions, which we're not, we would be encouraging you to look along that line.
That the pickleball crowd?
Exactly. That is my presentation. It's a really short recap of a very large study. I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Very informative.
Thank you. As I had said earlier, we will have this report in a final version available for you. It'll probably be about 60 days from now.
Could you get a copy of that to Aaron? And then
I have it
can we, oh, you got it.
Yeah.
Be kind of interesting.
I have the draft anyway.
And the final version, you said 60 days, so.
That's what we're expecting. And
Yeah.
we're asking all of the cities to take the time and review it, especially the recommendations section for your community.
Yeah.
We don't always capture the exact information. You might have, for all I know, the day after we pulled information, or Maxfield pulled the information, you might have approved a very large development and we didn't capture it. That's why we want your staff to take a look at it.
Subsidized housing, is that just Section 8?
No, there are a lot of ways to subsidize housing. Section 8 and public housing are the two oldest forms. They are programs created by the federal government. If you have a child in college and they're living in student housing, they're probably receiving a lower rate or paying a lower rate of rent than what someone living in an apartment across town would pay. That also is considered a subsidy. So it's what the development tools were. Is there a write down on interest rates that happened when the building was built? Is there a local form of assistance? Maybe churches are helping to people to pay rent. Those are also subsidies. So there are a lot of ways to subsidize units. The 4 senior housing buildings the Anoka County HRA has, we don't have a deep subsidy like Section 8. We have a shallow subsidy where, because we had favorable interest rates, we are not profit motivated, our rents typically come in about $100 below market rate. And that's why we like to work with cities, help you figure out what type of a product do you need. Do you need to show a lot of extremely affordable housing, or are you really missing that middle piece?
Income restricted housing, what exactly is that?
It means that at the time you move in, or at the discretion of the property, your income is looked at one time. I'll use the 4 senior buildings in the Anoka County HRA portfolio as an example. We have, say, Mary and Joe Smith want to move in. We have, when we built the building, we sold bonds, and the bond financing requires that they are at 80% of area median at the time of move-in. So that meant their household income at the move-in had to fall within that range, which may have been around $60,000. That's a fairly decent income for a retired couple. We're never going to look at it again. They can make more money, they can not have as much money. They could inherit a lot of money, we're not looking at that. But it means that at some point during occupancy, income had to be looked at in order to qualify.
Does Anoka County have one market rate, or does that change from city to city?
The 4 buildings we have each have different rates for rental, and it's based on the community, the year we built, what the interest rates were. We want our buildings to cash flow. So there are, we have some 1 bedrooms, we have 2 bedrooms, we have 2 bedroom plus dens. So we do a market analysis every year before we set our rents.
Okay, you made the statement Anoka workers can't afford housing. We can, what's the answer? I mean, how can this thing sustain itself if you work in Anoka County but you can't afford to live here?
Excellent
Isn't that
question.
kind of counterintuitive?
Excellent question, council member. There are multiple ways to do it. We see a lot of people doubling up. You may have a roommate. You may take a side job. You may be an Uber driver to make additional money. You may rent out a room in your house. There are a lot of ways to ultimately afford to live here. It's just that statistically, on that primary source of income versus our housing costs, it's really a challenge. And it's really, really hard if it's new construction.
So if you, if you're unrestricted and you move in and then you're starting to do the Uber and a little extra money and Anoka finds out, is it they boot you out or they just?
These are statistics that we pulled from the general labor market. In our 4 senior buildings, we check that income one time. If someone is living in a building with a deep subsidy, say a development of 50 units and 5 of them have a deep subsidy where the tenants pay 30% of their income, they're going to have to recertify their income probably on an annual basis and report all different sources of income. But there's very little of that affordable housing in this area.
Okay, last question. Maxfield, did report Maxfield, what's the other part of that name?
Maxfield Research?
Anyone else have any comments or questions for Ms. Skipper? If not, thank you very much for your presentation.
Yes, thank you.
It's
Thank you.
informative, kind of alarming though at what the prices people are facing. It's incredible.
Mr. Mayor, it is alarming, but it's really helpful information. This is the kind of information developers want to see.
Yeah.
Whether it's commercial development or residential. They want to know what the housing
Yeah.
statistics are. So this should be a good tool for you for the next decade.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me tonight.
Thanks. The next item on our agenda, 4B, is the Anoka County Sheriff's Office monthly report with
Back from
Lieutenant
holiday.
Peters.
It's nice to be back. I apologize. I was gone between the holidays, but it was a nice needed break. So good to be back, everyone. But December was actually our slowest month. We had 314 calls for service. We responded to 1 burglary, 1 theft report, and 1 assault. We had 17 total arrests, though, made in our city, and our traffic enforcements resulted in the issuance of 43 citations on our city roads, which was our highest monthly total in 2023. So less calls meant a little bit more proactive traffic enforcement, which was nice to see from our staff. So a few of our notable calls in December was on the 10th of December. Deputies responded to Nexus Family Healing on a report of 2 juveniles fighting with staff. On arrival, our deputies were escorted into the building, and 2 females were seen actively fighting with our staff there. While attempting to detain one of the juveniles, one of our deputies was bit on the arm several times. We were able to safely secure the juveniles and quickly regain control of the situation. After interviewing all the staff members that were present, it was learned that both juveniles had assaulted the staff members and had been destroying property and office equipment within the facility, which totaled $3,500. Both of the juveniles were transported to the Regional Juvenile Center in Lino Lakes, which is our secure facility, where they were later charged with assault, damage to property, and assault on a peace officer. Thankfully, no one sustained any major injuries in this, so that was the positive that we were able to take from that. On the 18th of December at 8:45, deputies were dispatched to an address on the 24100 block of Skylark Avenue on a domestic. The reporting party here said that a male there was throwing property around and arguing with other occupants inside of the home. Prior to arrival, the deputies learned that a female involved in this incident had an active warrant for her arrest. So sometimes before we get to certain calls, our dispatch center will provide some information to us just so that we kind of know what we're getting ourselves into before we arrive. At any rate, this female that was involved in this had an active warrant for her arrest. When we got there, all the deputies contacted everyone that was involved in this and determined that there had been no additional crime. After making this determination, the deputies advised the female with a warrant that she was under arrest. At this point, the female tried to pull away from the deputies and kicked at one of our deputies that was on scene. The female continued to struggle and began spitting at another deputy, hitting him in the chest and arm. Deputies were successful in securing this female in the back of the squad car, later transporting her to jail where she was booked on the warrant and an additional 2 charges of gross misdemeanor 4th-degree assault on a police officer and 2 counts of felony assault as well. So another unfortunate situation there, but thankfully no one was seriously injured there as well. On the 22nd of December at 10 o'clock, Deputy Mo Broughton was on 65 approaching Klondike when he observed a vehicle traveling above the posted speed limit. Deputy Mo Broughton's squad radar advised him that the vehicle was traveling 78 to 65. Deputy Mo Broughton stopped this vehicle and spoke to the driver, who was exhibiting signs of alcohol impairment. The driver admitted to having 3 drinks prior to driving. Deputy Mo Broughton then had the driver step out to perform standardized field sobriety testing, which he ultimately failed. The driver gave a preliminary breath test, which resulted in a .12 and was arrested for DWI. The driver later DMT'd, which is our evidentiary testing device, at the same level, was charged with 4th degree misdemeanor DWI and over .08. The driver was later released to our jail staff without incident. And then finally, another DWI on the day after Christmas at 3:45 in the afternoon. Deputy Mo Broughton was dispatched to an address in the 2300 block of Monroe Street on a report of a female under the influence of drugs and or alcohol ramming her vehicle into another car with a small child in the vehicle. On arriving, the deputies located that vehicle in question running in the driveway. It had front end damage and was smoking. No one was inside of the car at the time, but Deputy Mo Broughton could hear yelling from inside of the house. Deputy Mo Broughton spoke to a male and female inside of the home who were arguing. Neither party provided any information on the specifics of the argument, but it was determined that the female in the house had been driving the car. She admitted to drinking. The female was later asked to perform standardized field sobriety testing, which she subsequently failed. She provided a preliminary breath test on scene, which reported a value of .206. The female was arrested and transported to the sheriff's office, where she provided a DMT test, which reported a final value of .16. The female was transported to jail and released to detention staff and charged with 2nd degree DWI. At the conclusion of 2023, overall, our total calls for service were 4,797, which was much smaller than 2022's call load of 5,077. So we were down approximately 300 calls for service in our city. Theft calls and assault calls were up slightly, as well as our alcohol-related driving offenses, unfortunately. Thankfully, though, traffic crashes were significantly lower than in years past. So I think we're trending in the right direction with the lack of snow. Hopefully we stay on that path and we continue with this traffic enforcement that we've seen out on our city roads. So with that, I appreciate the opportunity to come back. It's good to be back. I will stand for any questions that anybody may have of me.
So you think the accidents being down is just because of the snow, isn't it?
I think so. I think we see a lot of those crashes in the afternoon, like in rush hour traffic, where you get that heavy traffic flow, and then you add a little bit of snow on top of the roads. It creates some issues. It's almost like, people don't pay attention to the fact that, and I'm one of them too, right? You're not paying attention to the weather. You get out to your car, you're in a rush to get home, and you're driving maybe a mile an hour or two faster than you should be, or you would have been, and that's what makes the difference out there with those slick roadway conditions. So I think that's probably going to play into our lack of crashes this year, which is good, right? It's good.
When you talk about these theft calls, are they from cars or are they from people's residence?
Yeah, we handled one last month, and if I'm not mistaken, that would be a theft call from someone's residence or a structure, because we would label it theft from motor vehicle if it was from a car.
Okay.
I can double check on that in the back here just to see what it's showing. I don't recall actually reading on that theft, which doesn't mean a whole lot. It just wasn't one of our priority calls for service. So.
Well, you say their theft calls were slightly up. I was wondering if it was from residents or from cars being parked somewhere.
Yeah, and if it was from a residence, we'd consider that one of our burglaries.
Okay.
So.
Derek, I'm curious, do you know how many calls they've had to Nexus over there since they opened by chance?
We've had several. I can do some digging on that and get the specific
Yeah, could
numbers
you just
for
send me
you.
an email of what you have?
Yeah,
That'd be
absolutely.
great. Thank you.
I can recall one from the month before in November. I don't know if I included it in the last brief that I had
Okay.
Sergeant Lindbergh up here for. So
Yeah,
I think we're learning. So it's a collaboration. It's a collaborative effect, effort between us and Nexus to provide that service, to make sure that we're doing everything for the kids that are there. So it's a work in progress, and I think they're learning, and we're helping teach as best we can, and then respond as needed for sure. when things
Okay,
come up.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lieutenant
They
Peter.
can't restrain anyone over there, correct?
That's my understanding, and I don't wanna say
No,
yes, but it's my understanding. So we're working through some of those issues.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the Fire Department Monthly Report with Chief Sanow.
Good
Howdy,
evening,
Rod.
Mr. Mayor, Council. For the month of December, the fire department responded to 76 calls for service. Of those, 61 were medicals, 1 accident, 5 alarms, and 3 mutual aid calls. I do believe most of those were to Oak Grove. We responded 962 calls for service in 2023 compared to 923 calls in 2022. That's a 4% increase over year. In 2023, we responded to 730 medicals, 61 accidents, 58 alarms, 38 burning and smoke in the area calls, 20 fires, and 16 mutual aid calls. Those calls, 114 of them were duty officer calls where we sent 1 person only. That's the person that's on duty to check them out. That cuts down on the number of calls that the firefighters have to respond to. On average, we have 4.5 firefighters respond per call. The average firefighter responded to 134 calls for the year, or 2.5 calls per week. We had firefighters anywhere from 88 calls to 312 calls. And then I took my numbers out and I took out inspectors, Uden's numbers too. So I wouldn't skew the paid on call numbers. The average firefighter responded to 44% of their calls. They're only required to do 30%, so they're doing well above that.
Where do you stand now in terms of the number of,
I'll get to that,
oh, okay.
Mr. Mayor. The firefighters that, I'm going into training now, the firefighters have to have at least 24 hours of fire training a year, 8 hours of hazmat training a year, and 12 hours of medical training a year. That's just to keep their Fire 2 and their EMR class certifications. If you're an EMT, you have to do another 24 hours every 2 years to get that. The fire department right now, staffing for 2024, there are 2 full-time people, myself and Inspector Uden. There are 29 paid-on-call staff with years of service from 42 years, or just over 42 years, to 22 days in that. So there are 5 members with us over 20 years of service on the fire department. Like I said, we have a guy with 42, we have a guy with 35. I come in next with 24, and then we have a couple at 20 in that. 60% of our department has 10 years or less of service in that. And we have about 22% of our department is female, which was way females. That's way above the state average, national average, and everything. I do believe we have 7 female firefighters in that. And then just a reminder, on Saturday, January 27th, there will be a breakfast at Station 1 from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Route 65 will be catering. The cost will be $8 for an adult, $4 for children 12 and under. And then depending on the weather, we may have fire trucks out. If it's above 30 degrees, I will put some out on the tarmac. If it's below, I'm not going to freeze them up, so I'm going to take them away and put them, in the garages somewhere else. There may be a helicopter landing too, depending on the weather. And then there will be local vendors there to sell their product. So we encourage everybody to stop by, support the local vendors and that. And that is all I got.
Station 1 is on Viking and East
Viking
Bethel Boulevard.
Yep, and East Bethel Boulevard, the Station 1. They'll be out in the base. So you'll come in either the side door or the front door, and then we'll direct you from there.
Okay, good. Looking forward to it.
What is other?
What?
Under calls, what is other?
Other? That is like some smoke calls and that, something that we really don't classify. If I classified everything, it'd be a list, about,
It's everything other than what you specify.
Yeah.
Yeah. Catch all.
It's just to cut down on the number of
Yeah.
the roles.
Could you do a favor and you use a purple highlighter?
Okay, I'll talk to the
where
person
you
doing the
can't
report.
see? That'd be good.
She, actually, there's somebody that does put this report together for
Oh,
me.
all right.
And she, uses the colors in the computer. I will have her switch the colors.
It's just my old eyes.
Yep.
I don't know what your problem is there, DeRoche.
Is there any more other questions here?
No, thank you very much,
No,
Chief.
thanks.
Any questions for audience? Okay, thank you guys and have a good
Oh,
day.
yeah, one question. You guys haven't been called out to Coon Lake yet, have you?
No.
I mean, you know, people get on social media and they're saying 11 inches here, 9 here, but.
No, we have not, and hopefully we don't.
Okay.
I like to keep that equipment in the barn
Yeah,
clean and dry.
yep.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
that was
you.
it.
Thanks, Chief.
Take care, Derek.
Brings us to item 5, which is the public forum. I know at least one person signed up there. Can you, I don't know if somebody gathered up the sheet that was up there.
Mayor, there was a sign-up sheet, but I think it might
I think
actually.
maybe she gathered it up in her.
But I
in her
do recall
document.
seeing one individual.
Well,
Get Karen back here.
Gentleman sitting in the next to back row in the center, you signed up on the public forum up here. Do you want to come up and speak?
I didn't know it was a public forum. I was here.
Oh, okay, okay.
I'm here to deal with the capstone issue.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, I get, does anybody want to speak in the public forum? Just to double check? Okay, I guess we're done with the public forum, so move on to the next item, which is the consent agenda. So, someone want to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to do the consent agenda.
And that's as amended earlier per Brian.
Unless anybody else has something they want to take out.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion of the consent agenda? No, hearing none. All those in favor of approving it as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No one heard. So it moves us into new business. Planning Commission, and the first item is the preliminary plat for the Capstone Homes project. And I see a couple of gentlemen I recognize in the audience.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We moved a little faster than I was anticipating.
Caught
so
you off guard there,
Give me
huh?
1 second.
I'm not moving at our usual lackadaisical
Right,
pace, huh?
I wouldn't say that. It's important to get all the answers. Very important. All right. On November, you guys are very familiar with the project proposal. I'm just going to highlight a few items and then highlight a few items that have transpired since the last time this was in front of you.
Good.
In hope that we can move forward maybe with a decision today. But on November 28th, a preliminary plat and PUD from Capstone Homes Incorporated for the redevelopment of Viking Meadows was received. The plat shows the redevelopment of 155 acres of land, which spans across the zoning classifications of mixed use and single-family residential. The proposal shows 95 acres of developable land, which contain a proposed 242 lots. In addition, the proposal contains 60 open acres of green space, which include 10 acres of park and/or recreation space. On June 27th of 2023, it was in front of the Planning Commission with the concept plan. On the July 24th, 2023 City Council meeting, the concept plan was proposed and presented to Council. On August 22nd, 2023, the revised concept plan was presented to the Planning Commission, where a vote of recommendation of approval was forwarded to the City Council. On August 28th of 2023, the revised concept plan and PUD were presented to City Council along with the Planning Commission's recommendation. The City Council unanimously approved the concept plan by Resolution 2023-61. On November 28th of 2023, the preliminary plat and PUD application was presented to the Planning Commission, and by a 5-to-1 vote, a recommendation of approval was forwarded to the city council. There was one property owner who spoke and was supportive of the preliminary plat. On January 4th of 2024, a meeting between city staff, the Anoka County Highway Department, resulted in the request for an addendum to the traffic study to focus on the intersection of Viking Boulevard and Sandhill Parkway. The addendum results reported, in summary, we assume no signal or the existing conditions at Highway 65 and 187th, with 98% of the background traffic going north on Sandhill to Viking to access Highway 65. If you remember from the study, there was the information that 187th and Highway 65 was going to be the main entrance exit for traffic. The addendum switched the study to show that traffic would be going northbound, and that addendum identified the traffic patterns and quantities for Sandhill Parkway at 100 or at Viking Boulevard, as opposed to Highway 65 and 187. In 2028, build traffic operations, according to the traffic study, are acceptable, but a westbound right turn lane queuing does increase at Highway 65 and Viking. Operations at Highway 65 and 187th lane are acceptable, with the reduction of traffic, again, moved from 187th up to Sandhill Parkway and Viking Boulevard. The addendum results are attached in your packet as attachment number 2. MnDOT was provided with the addendum results along with modeling information the traffic engineer used to achieve their results. Although we have not received a formal comment letter, the MnDOT's 30-day turnaround time from their Metro North Traffic Safety Area Manager did provide a preliminary email identifying that in their initial January 8th of 2024 review of the traffic study, they had requested additional review of 187th and Highway 65, which may not be required anymore due to the addendum that was commissioned after that. A fiscal impact study was requested by the mayor. City staff, in combination with the mayor, compiled and potential forecasted impacts. That is attachment number 4. We also did have a conversation with the mayor and went over the results of that fiscal impact study. Staff have determined that the proposal, with the approval of a homeowners association, is in compliance with our 2040 comprehensive plan, the zoning ordinance, and the official zoning map. Additionally, the proposed preliminary plat and PUD meet the intended criteria for granting a PUD based on City Ordinance Section 56. The developer, city engineer, public works manager, and city staff have met multiple times and continue to work in conjunction with the Anoka County Highway Department to alleviate and address overall traffic considerations at Sandhill and Viking Boulevard. The independent contract study results and addendum have been presented to city staff as well as council. All comments from the city engineer, like any other preliminary plat, must be satisfied prior to the application of any final plat. Any and all Anoka County Highway Department engineering comments will need to be satisfied prior to application of a final plat as well, including but not limited to, as they've identified in their letter, a plan review of the site, right-of-way assessment permits, and a county ditch review. After the additional reviews of subsequent information requested along with the original request, City Council may consider the Planning Commission's formal recommendation and consider approval of the preliminary plat and PUD for the redevelopment of Viking Meadows as presented.
I'm letting you guys speak before I say anything. You want to just go into a motion and then have a discussion? Don't everybody pipe up at once, huh?
For the sake of conversation then, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-04, approving preliminary plat Viking
And Resolution 2024-05,
That would be a separate motion, but
Okay. Do we have a second for the motion? Well, I'll second it. Okay, so discussion.
so was there any more conversation on having commercial along Sand Hill?
Is there any more conversation having what?
Was there any more conversation? At the last meeting, it was brought up of having commercial along Sand Hill via the letter by Mr. Voss. Was there any more conversation about that?
Well, we did look at, when I met with Mr. Look, Mr. Berg, and Mr. Ashford, respectively our city administrator, community development director, and public works director. When I met with them, we looked at that 15.66 acres on the southeast corner of Viking and 65. It's across the road from where the western portion of Capstone would be. And we would just like to know current information as to how usable that is for commercial property, if there's been some recent soil borings, because we looked at the ones that were done for Sand Hill Parkway, and they were only adjacent to the road edge. They didn't go out into the property. But other than that, that was the extent of our conversation, was wanting to know if that is a viable commercial lot without having to dig out, 50 feet of peat before you can get to, solid ground to build up from. And we talked, when we met with Capstone, Matt and I met with the fellows from Capstone, the gentleman right there, Matt and Steve, and we asked them, we mentioned Mr. Voss's concern about their development encroaching right up to Sand Hill Parkway, and we wondered if it was possible to just lop off that one cul-de-sac right there and at least preserve 10 or 15, whatever acres right there. And I think it's correct to say you were pretty adamant that you would have to make up for the loss of those homes somewhere else, like the 30 acres that was previously going to be part of this, which is outside the MUSA. Do I say it correctly? Metropolitan Utility Service Area? Is that what MUSA stands for?
Metropolitan Urban Service.
For those listening, we throw out terms and you don't know what they mean. I didn't know what they were until I got into this line of work either. But we viewed that as more egregious in terms of expanding the MUSA arbitrarily for a specific development than for the loss of that potential commercial property that abuts Sand Hill Parkway, especially in light of the precedent of Elevage, which I did oppose, which used a considerable amount of the available commercial, not necessarily frontage, but property. So of the two choices, we viewed that as a poorer choice. Does that answer your question, Brian? Okay. I'm trying not to talk too much, so if you guys have things that are on your minds, please speak up.
Yeah, Kevin, I wrote down some things here.
Can you get closer to your mic, Tim?
Yeah. I'm all about what Capstone is trying to do here. I like the development plans. I like the concept plans. Obviously, I voted for it. But I'm seeing something, and I'm going to be honest, that I don't feel good about. As a member of this city council, as you know, we're tasked with making important decisions that ultimately affect the well-being and the future of this city. These decisions that we make up here are based on ordinances, which are in place to maintain and ensure safety and prosperity for the community. However, in recent times, we've been faced with the challenge of a concept plan presented by our builders that tend to push the boundaries and maximize profits while selling their vision to this city rather than what I would consider ours. While I understand that growth and development are crucial for the success of our city, I also have to consider the plans, and how they align with the best interest of our community as a whole. Are all the concerns and potential issues thoroughly addressed in these concept plans, or are there still unanswered questions? And if so, is it fair to proceed without proper clarity? After all, I was put in this seat, this very one, by residents who trust me to make the proper decision. But the responsibility is not just about making the right decisions here. It's also about ensuring the public is informed and aware of the decisions we're being made, which we've been very adamant through this whole process, and why we've tabled some things, because we did need answers. Would the residents who elected me be comfortable with the choices that are being made if they didn't have all the answers? If they didn't know who was responsible for the HMO and grass clippings and keeping, the trails nice, snow removal, these open space as they're considered here. Let's be realistic. These are ponds that have a trail around them. These aren't open space. When I consider open space in other communities, I see park benches, I see swing sets, I see places for families to gather. This is a holding pond for storm runoff that has a trail around it. Just so we're clear on how I'm thinking. I don't want to make a hasty decision without thoroughly considering all the aspects. And I wish we had more input from the city, because if you go around and talk to people, you get various comments. Some people love it, some people hate it. Do we need it? Of course, East Bethel needs development. But we also are looking at the face of criticism on social media. Those who believe that, rushing to this decision right away months ago, that we were stupid not to sign on the dotted line. Giving preliminary approvals without the full picture is insufficient. And I'd like to think that I believe that we must act and be steadfast when we act in the best interest of this city. It's true that time is of the essence in some cases, but sacrificing the well-being for the quality of life in this city is not an option. It just isn't. My job, as I see it on city council, first of all, and this one is not an easy one, because there's always going to be opposing views and criticism. But at the end of the day, it's the city itself, that's what matters. And whether it be criticism or for it, we are all on the same page, because we hope and want what's best for this city, period. To achieve this goal, every decision that we make contributes toward the progress and betterment of the city. At least it should be in my mind. Fast action without all the answers equals poor leadership, and I refuse to let that be a label associated with my name, because I have questions that I want answered on this development. Do I want to throw it out the window? No, by any means. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying if we're going to call an open space, make it an open space. If we have rules and ordinances that we go by, I think we need to examine, for example, some of the cul-de-sacs. 8 and 7 houses is too much. There's too many houses shoved in here. Do I want this to walk away? No, not by any means. I want you to have an eraser and change a few things. That's it. There's a lot of things that we're okaying or looking for approval yet to come when we approve this preliminary plat. I'd love to see it keep going in the right direction, because I want to be a part of Capstone. I think the city wants to be a part of Capstone. It's not there yet, in my opinion, and that is my opinion, guys.
Well, that's what we want to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have we gotten all the responses that MnDOT and the county have asked for? In other words, are all our eggs in one basket? Or are we waiting on information? I guess I got a couple
You
questions.
got a
for Nate.
preliminary, but you're waiting for the final.
Correct, I'm waiting for a
From the
formal
Anoka County-
document
From MnDOT or from Anoka
From
County?
MnDOT.
MnDOT, yeah.
Now, I can state that Viking Boulevard is an Anoka County road, and Sand Hill Parkway is a city street. Although it's parallel to MnDOT, MnDOT's preliminary
Right.
approval made me feel a little bit more comfortable that they're not putting as much stock in it, because we're not tying up 187th and Highway 65, like was examined in the first study, the full
Right.
study.
Right.
So, you know, the county would have jurisdiction there as well as the city at that intersection. So, like I said, with that preliminary email approval saying that they likely aren't gonna require that additional study at 187th and Highway 65, I felt comfortable moving forward.
Thank you.
I had
Jim?
a couple questions on the roads in Capstone. I'm sure they can answer. But most of the roads that we build or whatever that we get state funding for, because it's my understanding that Capstone's gonna put the roads in and then we're gonna take them over. Is that pretty much it?
Like any other development in our city, yeah.
Okay, so does that mean it's all gonna be curbed and guttered?
That's correct.
And one of my thoughts was on the parking. So you got all these homes and they're pretty close, but what do you do, because you can't park on the lawn in East Bethel. And I think you can't park overnight on the roads, on some roads, isn't that right, Nate?
From November 1st to March 31st, you can't park overnight.
Okay, so where are the people gonna park? And even at that, if there's a bad snowstorm and we gotta plow, it's our responsibility to plow the streets and get them clean. And our guys aren't, from looking at the spacing, I mean, it's hard for me, I've looked at a couple other developments you guys have done, they look pretty good, actually. But, where are they gonna, how are you gonna plow the streets? And do it in a safe manner, because if you got a couple people that are parked, maybe they work nights, they're sleeping the day, or maybe they work days, sleeping at night, plow comes by, roads aren't completely clean, well, we can't expect our plow drivers to come back to each little spot and clean it up. So has that been taken into consideration? How's that gonna be handled?
From my perspective, Councilman DeRosa,
Yeah.
I understand your concern. These streets are engineered to a city standard, so there are 2 driving lanes and there are 2 adjacent lanes for off-street parking or, on-street parking during the high traffic volume times. As Nate has pointed out, we do have a snow, if you will, ordinance that is only applicable from November to end of March. That is a citywide ordinance, so that this is within the city, so that would apply to all of these residences as well. It would be curb and guttered. Just like any other urban city, the streets have been designed to withhold, the number of cars, parking, the lane widths, all those things are to our urban city standard.
So how do we deal with the no parking? Because any road that MSA that we've done, all of a sudden there's no parking signs every whatever. I mean, is it parking on one side, not on the other?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I think, Bob, what you're referring to are state aid roads. This would not be state aid. This is just a regular developmental road with urban design. It'd be similar to what we have currently in Whispering Aspen or Viking Preserve. It's curb and gutter. There is parking allowed during the day, overnight during the summertime. Nothing is allowed overnight from March, like I said, from November 1st to March 31st. When we do plow, anytime there's a 2-inch snowfall, then that also includes no parking on the road, whether it's in the day or anytime. There's no allowed, and that's on any street in East Bethel. If we do come across it sometimes when we're plowing, and if it's a problem, we call the deputies. They'll come out and ticket it, and if it's a problem blocking the street, they can tow it. It doesn't happen too often. We usually try and work with the homeowners. If it's a constant one, we'll go knock on a door sometimes, and we're out there and try and work with them. But so far it hasn't been a big issue for us. If it's one car by itself, we usually plow around it. They end up having a big pile of snow around their car that they have to deal with later too. And then we'll clean it up on our next time through. So.
Well, you say it's not an MSA road. Initially it's not, but once it becomes a city road, if we want to use any funding, state funding for that,
we won't be
isn't
able
that
to
an
use,
MSA road?
No, we wouldn't be able to use state funding on that. MSA money has to be for
Arterial?
There you go, easy for me to say.
It's easy for you to say.
Main connection roads, they're higher volume, it does not include residential streets, so,
All right.
thanks.
Jim, did you have anything you wanted to say?
First, I want to say, Tim, you did a great job there. I'll tell you, like, there's a lot of thought put into what you said, and I agree with what you say. And the cul-de-sacs have been an issue for me all along. It's like, if we have a snow like last year, we can't pile it in the middle like people say you can do that. We have 7, 8 houses on a cul-de-sac. If we have to get emergency vehicles, like a fire truck, there's no way if there's snow in there. I mean, if there's a way that they can reduce them.
Has
that'd
that
be
been
great.
addressed yet in the engineer's report or anything?
I don't believe so.
Has
I've-
that been
And
addressed?
I've done a lot of reading, but I haven't seen anything.
I haven't seen that
But I've
addressed.
asked.
That
No.
was the only concern at this point that I had too, was the 2 cul-de-sacs, that's all it was.
So, Mayor, Mr. Council, Member Smith, Public Works Director and myself, City Engineer, Capstone have sat down and went over cul-de-sacs on multiple occasions in our weekly meetings. Capstone has provided us information from cul-de-sacs similar in nature from other developments that they've developed. I think Matt might have a little more valuable information since they've got cul-de-sacs like this that have made it a winter or two, and he can address maybe some of the concerns about snow storage
Please.
and or
Why not,
that
Matt?
you guys might, yeah, I'm sure he'd answer the questions.
Aaron, has the fire chief reviewed this
Fire
as
chief
far
has
as?
reviewed,
And no quills from
no
him?
comments.
Okay.
No comment?
Other than the other than the exit at 189th and configuring how we're gonna make that an emergency exit, that's really the concern of the fire department.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, thank you, council members, good to see you once again.
yeah, good
We'll
to see you.
Continue to work at this, so, yeah, the question about cul-de-sacs, I know it's been a question we've asked several times. So we did go back after previous discussions on that, had the conversations with engineers, with Nate, with your team here to go over that. We've got several cul-de-sacs that are actually smaller than this 50-foot radius with more homes on it, and have gone through the last couple of winters, which have been severe as they are, and have had great success because there's enough placement for that as they're going through and making the rounds with the snowplows. All of them are on public streets, so they are plowed by the public. So that has not been an issue, and that was the information that we shared with your team with that design. And now we're talking about a 50-foot radius, so it's a little bit bigger than what we've designed in most of our others. So that 50-foot radius, we're confident, and after having discussions with the engineers, there's ample room for snow storage on those cul-de-sacs. And I think Public Works, they've been looking at this too. I won't speak on your behalf, but there's mechanisms to deal with snow load and everything as you go through the season. So that's helpful. I think you guys have a strategy of doing some snow removal throughout the year as necessary, and that's budgeted for through your city. And then this is an HOA, so we have the ability to work with the city if there's a need for some sort of snow abatement issues that may come up. But last year was a record, or almost record, top 5 for snow load.
Yeah,
And a couple of our communities that have 45-foot cul-de-sacs had no problems and didn't have to remove snow. And I'm the one that gets to take that responsibility, so I think that we've got a plan that works really well. We've seen it work with these really heavy snow.
Hey, Aaron, do you know what packet that these designs are in?
This was from the November,
28th.
yes, the November 28th packet.
What page are they on?
It won't be in this packet.
No,
don't
I've
know
got
what page it's
November.
on.
Oh, you have the November one.
Sorry,
the
Bob, I
November
don't
here.
remember the page number.
Oh, why not? You're the mayor.
Yeah.
I would go to the November 28th agenda and see where the capstone presentation was and jump to, if it indicates page 30 something. I can certainly look for you while Matt's
Yeah, it's in
talking
that
too.
packet though.
May I just speak on one
Yeah,
more thing?
please.
Thank you, Tim, for your conversation and your notes. That was valuable. I did write down a few things that you had put in there. I'd love to hear a little bit more of some of those questions that you have. We've been trying to listen and answer those every time they've come up. So, but one of the things I did hear you say was open space and the concern about that open space and thinking that was just a pond. And I don't know if you remember looking in that last rendition of it was in the park plans provision, and it does show a little bit in the landscaping plan that's in this plan set that we've provided you with. We're actually now preserving what I believe is I think it's either hole 8 or hole 9 as an open space. That's the open space, that's that 10 acres that's being dedicated to the city. That's actually not a pond. That is green open space that has great opportunity for the city to use for whatever improvements they may choose to do. You have a great active play area that we've talked about. That's that kind of that corner or that square that's right in the, thank you, appreciate that. So that city park, 9th hole, that is not a pond. That's 8.7 acres of green space. That's right through the middle. It's right through the middle of all of this, and it's tied by trail to the city park, which we said was an active play area. So you are getting 10 acres of green space, not the ponds or anything else. So I just wanted to make sure I clarified that open space dedication that's coming with the park, so it's park dollars and land that we're giving, that's what that refers to. So
Thank you.
Yep, just wanted to answer that question. And if there's anything else, I'm here to stand for questions. If you've got some other things that are just not quite answered and you'd like to throw those out, I'd love to hear those and help you with that.
I'd like the address where those cul-de-sacs are, because I'd like to drive up through there.
The
I'd like to
cul-de-sacs
take a
that we
look.
have work, so.
Could you get them to me and
Yeah,
drive
absolutely.
up there?
Yep.
And
We've got one in Andover that's right up here. You can take a look at. So the one in Ramsey, I didn't refer to that tonight. There is one in Ramsey. It's actually it's a 29-foot street, so a narrower street even yet. That one is actually privately maintained, but the same issues. They didn't have any issues with snow removal. Down in Cottage Grove is, and I've got that plan set with me here. I can show you that as well. And that is all this smaller townhome or smaller single-family product that we have with cul-de-sacs. And there's 3 large cul-de-sacs that have worked really well. So I'd be happy to share that with you.
thank you.
But just to get it on the record here, yeah, am I correct in understanding that the city engineer and the fire chief, Nate, and you've all reviewed the cul-de-sac layout the way it is? And you don't see any problem with snow removal, emergency vehicles, or anything? Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, the only concern that surfaces on conversations with the city engineer is the radius of the curve on this street and how our city code, we would need to make an exception in the plan unit development language for the radius of that curve on that one particular hook in the road.
Okay.
But it's not related to the cul-de-sacs.
But it is not related to that
Right,
cul-de-sac
it's the curve
specifically, it's the
itself,
radius
yeah.
of this curve.
Do you guys have anything else to say?
So Matt, when you're talking with your HOA, what are they gonna be responsible? You're part of that, the HOA. What are they gonna do? Are they gonna maintain trails? What are they covering?
Closer to the mic.
Yep. What does the HOA get to entail?
Yeah, what are you guys covering with your HOA? Because I imagine, the way I understand it, you have fees per home that are gonna pay it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
There will be a fee per home. So there's a couple of components with the HOA that are gonna really be beneficial. One is, and this is kind of overlooked, but one central garbage hauler. I don't know if you ever have that issue where you see multiple garbage haulers running through a community. The HOA takes that responsibility, so the homeowners will be paying the HOA for one garbage hauler, which is, it's easier on your roads, right? You don't have 5 trucks hauling through there every week, it's one. That's one component. We do have green space outlotted throughout the development, so you'll see that green space that's kind of up by our Liberty single-family product there. But then we also have fairly substantial planned improvements to welcome people into the community, so there'll be those open spaces at both entrances that'll be irrigated and maintained by the HOA. You'll have mailboxes, central mailbox systems throughout there. That'll be through the HOA. And then just the overall architectural improvements, making sure that the community continues to hold up to the standards that we have anticipated for it. So if somebody's not able to go in there and maybe misuse the community a little bit, and so we have architectural control over that. So those are the 4 main ones. So you will have grounds contract, you will have a garbage contract, you'll have insurance to cover some of the things that happen within a community with mailboxes and other property damage. and then the overall architectural control to make sure that.
So then you guys are
well.
gonna be responsible for the mailboxes throughout, for how long?
So that's the great thing is we do CBU units or centralized boxes. They have 16 boxes in them, and that is the responsibility of the HOA as long as the HOA is in
Exists.
existence, which you can't make HOAs go away anymore. It's one of the most complicated things to do.
It's like a timeshare, huh?
Yeah, it kind of is. Yeah, it's just a difficult one. I'm in the HOA part of that industry. That's one of the things I do a lot with our team here, and it's the possibility of those going away is next to none. So
Is Capstone actually involved with the HOA, or is it just something that's the residents manage themselves?
no, Capstone remains involved as the declarant of the HOA all the way
Okay.
until the last home is sold.
All right.
We
Oh,
write-
well, but after the last home, then the residents take it over at that point?
Correct. We can
Okay.
only be in control if we own
Right.
a lot in there. So when we
Right.
sell that last lot, we give up our right to have any ownership or control
Okay.
at that point. But we are involved in it all the way from beginning to end. We draft the documents. Kenny Novak's in the back there. He's helping manage a lot of these HOAs now with me, and so we've got a team that's kind of building up around that. And then we work with our management companies directly. We make sure they're insured, they're in good financial standing, and we're readily engaged with the homeowners throughout the build out.
Did I hear you say, Matt, that you were gonna have those ponds irrigated?
No, not the ponds, the irrigation, green space irrigated.
Okay.
So your entrances, that recreational space that's out there by the Liberties, all of our entrance monument areas, those will be irrigated. Those will be green space.
And I'm glad you're going through this HOA because this is a big concern.
Sure.
You know, whether the residents are gonna get hit, the city's gonna get hit, or what's happening. So I appreciate you answering all these questions.
Absolutely.
Okay, I gave you guys the talk, now I'm gonna talk a little bit. I'll try to be succinct. I was very concerned about the traffic impact this would have, especially on top of Elevage, regardless of what Mr. Osborne does with his property. And I studied the traffic study very closely, including the technical documents, the addenda, the appendices that come with it. I requested them and they sent them to me. Even though I'm not a professional engineer, you know, all just part of the due diligence thing. And I said at an earlier meeting, I'm an economist by training, so I am data oriented, analysis oriented. You know, if the assumptions are correct, the techniques are correct, you can believe the results to the best of your ability. When you're forecasting, you're doing the best you can. And originally I was concerned about this development, but I've come around. And I want to see East Bethel, at least as far as while we're here anyway, have a consistent approach to development projects. And that is, do they conform with our comprehensive plan, our zoning ordinances and all that? And do those zoning ordinances and that comprehensive plan reflect what the current residents of the city want in terms of development in their city? As you can't do it weekly or something, but you know, at least every 5 years or something, find out what people are thinking, what they want. And the second thing is to look at a traffic impact analysis. That's what they call it. And we did that, and we even went an extra step of saying, what bugged me with the Elevage, which was the first thing I dealt with when I got on the city council a year ago last November. First thing on the docket, first big project. And I voted against it twice for whatever reasons, but one of the reasons was I thought the traffic study had included something at 187th and 65 and I didn't think it was going to happen. Well, we wound up taking that light out and had an addendum to the traffic study done, which we agreed to pay half of, and Capstone agreed to pay half of the extra cost, just to double check the traffic impacts. We were that concerned about it. And I'm persuaded, and I called Katie Schmidt, who's a professional engineer. She's the CEO of SSTS, the people who did the study. I'm just mentioning this, that we really have gone pillar to post on the due diligence on this thing. And I questioned her directly, and she told me she was surprised by the results herself. She thought it would be more of an impact, but it wasn't. So, and then we did the fiscal impact study. That's the third phase of what I'd like to see, a consistent method of looking at development proposals. Comprehensive plan and zoning ordinances, traffic impact study, and fiscal impact study. The fiscal impact study is what is the net financial impact on the city of a given development. And we showed that. It's in the packet. Anybody can look at it. And that suggests that near term there will be a strong positive impact, and depending on how many kids come in with the new folks, then downstream there's the cost of educating kids, and that's just part of the reality of having development in your city. So all this stuff said, all this stuff looked at, and we've worn out the staff with all of our questions, and certainly worn out these folks from Capstone too. I'm going to vote in favor of moving forward on this preliminary plat tonight, and I urge my fellow council people to do so. And if we have any questions, we insist that they be answered. And if it's a nagging problem, we might keep bugging you about the cul-de-sac or something, at least one of them that looks pretty tight. But as a data-oriented people, I've been through the data plenty, and I'm persuaded this on a net basis, this is a benefit to the city. And the final thing is to speak to the people who own Viking Meadows. We do not have a right to stop legal property owners from selling their property or to unnecessarily encumber that process, you know. We do have a right to say, you know, okay, we don't want you putting up a nuclear waste facility in our city, thank you. But, you know, short of something ridiculous like that, we want to encourage East Bethel to be a place where you can do business, both as an owner of property as well as a developer of property. On the other hand, we don't have to go to extraordinary lengths that encumber the people of East Bethel to make sure that property owners get the maximum dollar they could for their property either. So everything is a balancing act. But in this case, I think it's good for the people who own the property who want to sell it after many years of owning it. I think it's going to be good on net for the people of East Bethel. I just wanted to speak my little piece. Any further discussion?
Jim? Jim?
Thinking. I think moving forward, we're gonna have to take a look at some zoning stuff.
Well, as a city, we're going to have to do that. We're going to have to look at amending our comprehensive plan because we have a fair amount of residential that's come in, and we need, on a fiscal impact basis, net for the city, businesses pay twice the property tax rate residences do, and businesses don't come with kids that have to be educated. That's the cold, hard facts, you know. So I think we, in terms of the MUSA, I'm not talking about citywide, but in terms of the Metropolitan Utility Service area, we can certainly stand for more industrial, commercial type development in that area. And hopefully it'll include that 15.66 acres that the owners of Viking Meadows will still have. And hopefully that'll be a valuable property to sell down the road, not too far.
Mayor, with your leave, if I could make a comment or a statement.
Please.
First, Mayor and the council, I've been in the development area for most of my professional career, and your questions, I thought, were spot on. It was very helpful to me because when and if this is approved, one of the requirements is that the developer enter into a development agreement with the city. And so a lot of the issues with respect to how this is built and constructed, and then relatedly, how it's used and operated, was very helpful. I was taking notes as a result, because I'm going, okay, I got to keep this in mind when this goes to a development agreement, making sure that there are the appropriate terms and conditions and so forth. You might have saw that I went over and I spoke to your community development director. And my comment to him is my comment to you, and that is most everything that was referenced here is very important and can and should be addressed in the development agreement to make sure that we do not have those adverse impacts that you were talking about, as far as making sure that the HOA, is in place and living up to its responsibilities. With respect to, what are going to be those common, areas, and then when you do have a common area and you have an HOA, making sure that it is going to be that HOA that undertakes the fiscal responsibilities, the financial responsibilities with respect to the operation and upkeep and financially of those common areas. So I'm just bringing those up as a few issues that were noted here, and rightfully so, and the fact that at least many of them should, and in my opinion, will be taken care of in the development agreement, and I appreciate you bringing them up.
Well, thank you for your comments, and it's good for us that you have all that experience. It's going to serve us well.
But I
in this
also agree
project.
with Councilmember Miller. We've seen this not only in this development, but others, that it is right for the city to revisit its comp plan and its zoning to make sure that there is a better alignment between the two.
Yeah. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2024-04, approving the preliminary plat for Viking Meadows. And I'm calling the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Aye.
Nay.
Okay, well, what'll our next step be then?
So I suppose we don't need to approve resolution 2024-05 then.
Right.
The city will have to respond to the developer with a findings of fact as to the reason for the denial. I'm gonna need those who voted no to provide me some information so that we can draft a findings of fact to provide the developer as to the reason that we did not approve their preliminary plat as presented.
And how much time do we have?
I'd have to research that, I don't know.
You have until end of February, because you're under that 1599, and if you recall, we had this essentially tabled until that end date. Alternatively, if those that voted against this would like to essentially have this reconsidered and put back on the agenda for reconsideration by that date, that would be an appropriate motion as well. If that motion isn't made, then of course this decision to deny the preliminary plat is final.
Run that by me again.
Council has voted not to approve 2024.04, which would be the acceptance of the preliminary plat. That was on the agenda. So the next action is for staff to essentially prepare the report and the resolution setting forth the necessary findings of fact for that resolution to be adopted at the next city council meeting. Either now or at that meeting, this council could vote to reconsider its initial denial of the preliminary plat. In other words, bring it back for potential adoption.
Make a
But-
motion to do that.
Second.
So what is the motion exactly?
Well, I'm not gonna, I can't say his exact words.
Motion is to reconsider the preliminary plat on or before February 26th of 2024.
Okay.
Motion made.
Second. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah.
Jim?
Like I said, I'm all for this development with tweaking it. I really am.
So who would we address to get whatever concerns or questions we have? Do we go through Aaron? Do we go through Capstone?
Myself or City Administrator Look can field all of the remaining outstanding questions that you have. We can work within our own staff to provide you the answers. If we don't have those answers and it's something we need further from the developer, we will reach out to them and get answers to those questions that you have questions to. If we don't have those answers, we will work to make sure that we have a significant explanation for facts around what your questions are.
I don't have a lot of questions. I just have a few that I'd like to get answered.
So Mr. Mayor, in terms of the vote for reconsideration, you can make a motion for reconsideration at the next meeting. It has to be the next subsequent meeting to bring it back up for vote.
Do we put it on the agenda?
You wouldn't necessarily make that motion this evening, unless you have those questions this evening that the developer can answer and satisfy those questions. Then this evening you could do a vote
Apparently
for
not.
reconsideration.
So we can just put it on the next agenda, put it on the next meeting agenda.
It can be, yes.
We don't need a motion.
If the questions that you have can be answered this evening, in other words, the developer is here, they can agree to a change or whatever the case is that you may want, or answer a specific question for clarity, you can re-vote on it this evening if you'd like. Those that voted in affirmative of opposing, it sounds confusing, but
Yeah.
the opposing motion. Only those that voted on the opposing motion can bring it up for reconsideration.
Again, my motion stands. We'll bring it up next meeting.
I think you'll just consider that a direction to your city administrator, put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay.
Would it be appropriate to ask a question? Do we have a question right now?
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the council, thank you, Steve Bona with Capstone Homes. We do really appreciate the time and energy that you're putting into this. There's a lot of people putting a lot of time and energy into it, including yourselves, so we do thank you for that. All of the questions that have been asked of us that we're aware of, we've provided answers to, and we've confirmed our answers with city staff to the point where we haven't heard that they're objectionable. And so if there are other questions out there, Councilmember Miller, you were bringing up questions. I was trying to write down everything that you were bringing up. That was you did a very nice job speaking on a bunch of different points. The specific ones that I wrote down were open space that Matt was talking about, and maybe you have more questions about that, and then snow removal, and then, the holding pond. But do you have any other, are there any other specific questions that we can answer? We're just not aware of anything.
I do. I was going to reformulate a few things for you, but basically, to me, it's a lack of the true use of a mixed-use space. That has a big thing to do with looking at the density and the high density that's going in there. In this city's concept plan, which we talked about making some changes, and that's down the road. But right now, if you look at our concept plan under use of land, the first thing or first goal the city has set forth is to not be urbanized. Okay, we're asking to put in setbacks that are 25 feet instead of 30. I have never seen a cul-de-sac with anything more than 6 houses on it. I can't imagine 7 or 8. People say, you might like this kind of housing. Yeah, you can find this housing in downtown Minneapolis. This is gonna be a big chunk right in the middle of our city. Once it's there, it's there. It's never gonna go anywhere. And I appreciate, don't get me wrong, the efforts in the parks and stuff that you're trying to put in for us here. Because let's face it, since the sewer system, this city has been cash dry for our park systems. The residents have suffered because of it, and I don't want to see something get put up hastily that, one, doesn't fit with what we're trying to do here. And like I said, there's only minor things here, which is why, you know, when we say we can come back and revisit it, that's perfect. It's only minor things that we're looking at. We didn't have all the HOA information. We got bits and pieces of it. There's still, I think, some questions that even we're missing that we're not thinking about. When you guys leave and you're done with that last lot, it's the city's responsibility to come in. I want to make sure the city's responsibilities are all covered. This seems to me what we're approving tonight. There's a lot of stuff. If you read this pack, if this is approved, if this goes through, is this going to be right? I mean, we've got a lot of people that need to give you answers to give us answers yet. So when we're saying, no, I'm not ready for this yet, I'm not ready for it because of this. I mean, and that's the only reason. I mean, I like what you're doing. I think this city needs this. This is a big deal. But it's got to be done right. It just has to be done right. We could always have someone come in behind you and do it differently. We don't want that. I'm not asking for that. I'm asking to take a look at some of this stuff that we're talking about. We can live with these different setbacks. We can live with these different variances. But keep in mind, if I was building a house somewhere, I would have to abide by every ordinance that we have or come here before this council and ask for variances. Look at how many houses in there that would have to do that. I mean, they'd be asking for some variances on every setback. Okay, we make our residents basically not jump through hoops, but abide by the rules that the city has set up. If we don't help ourselves by letting you follow these rules and make sure you follow the rules, I think we're setting a bad example for all of the developers coming in here to try and do something. I understand about maximizing your dollar for what you're trying to do. That's great. But at the same time, you might be maximizing it too much, except, you know, the way I'm looking at it. That's, you know, some of the reasons there. It just doesn't feel right yet.
That part's
looks
concerning though, because we've removed how many lots? 104 lots from this. When city staff, when the mayor and city administrator came and met with us, we literally we were open to talking retail, but we just have to replace any units that we lose, because at this point, we can't drop another unit without replacing it. So that was the discussion. I mean, if we think about where we've started from and where we're at right now, the loss of, so 100 lots, 100 homes times $450,000 a house, that's $45 million of revenue, I believe. Just that's been removed from this completely.
And it was removed by taking out 30 acres that you couldn't really develop it properly on, 15 acres of commercial that are up front that are not being touched. I understand the different things that are going on. I also understand that I have a job to do. Okay, and if you had to remove houses, the question comes to me, why? We have these ordinances already set up for what you can maximize and do on these properties. You've looked at what our zoning codes are. So I mean, if it doesn't match, if our zoning doesn't match what you're trying to build, why would you put together a concept plan? That's my question. We're trying real hard, and I'm trying real hard right now to okay this. I really am. I'm trying to find every possible reason I can to give myself in my mind that this is a good thing for East Bethel. I know numbers look good, okay? But I've also looked at this and see how it is. There's too many variances asked. None of, you know, what is it, 80% of these houses would not be up to code if they were built to code. I mean, we are changing a lot of the different ordinances and codes for you.
That's
I
not-
want it to work.
That's just not right. But what I wanted to ask you, Councilman, was we will respond to your concerns. That was the reason I came up. We will respond to your concerns. We just ask that you give us specific questions of, you know, when you make your questions more specific on what your concerns are. then we can-
Absolutely, and you'll have them by the end of the week, because I do have them all in notes.
That'll help. That's huge.
I want to work with you the best I possibly can, and I will
Matt?
get you those questions.
I'll send you my questions tomorrow.
That would be great. That's all I had.
Perfect.
I mean, as soon as you get us questions and we're on it, we're doing the research, we're trying to provide answers to whatever you have. We just need to know what they are, so,
Absolutely.
okay, thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the final plat for Stradlin Farms, Carrington Development.
Second, Mr. Mayor, we'll get things set here. I seem to have lost my agenda, but we'll find it here. All right, on December 3rd of 2023, by Resolution 2023-72, a preliminary plat for a proposed Strandland Farm rural residential development was approved. On October 4th, 2024, the final plat application and accompanying materials were received by city staff. The proposed final plat is consistent with the approved preliminary plat and is in conformity with the comprehensive and zoning ordinance. It consists of 20 buildable single-family rural residential lots on 73.90 acres. Of the proposed lots, one is at the minimum standard of 2 acres, with the average lot size of 3.27 acres. Therefore, all lots in the proposal meet city code requirements. Street access, in the review, street access, the subdivision will be accessed off of Luan Drive, Anoka County Highway 74, by the creation of a new section of 219th Avenue. The new section of 219th Avenue will be required to be constructed to the city's minimum design standards. As I stated, it is Anoka County Highway 74, therefore it was reviewed by the Anoka County Transportation Division. The Anoka County Transportation was sent the final plat for review. Their comments from October 19th of 23 during the preliminary plat were resent to me as their response for the final plat, indicating that those comments were reviewed and stand. Therefore, any and all comments from the Anoka County Highway Department, as identified in the comment letter, will need to be satisfied prior to any site grading happening on the site. Public Works Department reviewed the final plat and stand by their comments, which were sent in part of the preliminary plat approval on October 14th of 2023. The city engineer was sent the final plat for review on January 5th, 2023. And I have in my staff report that although the comments have not been received, however, when I arrived at City Hall tonight, there was a letter from the city engineer in my email box, which I've made a copy and presented to all of you. All of these comments will have to be satisfied prior to us releasing the final plat to the developer for recording at the county recorder's office. Park dedication, the Parks Commission reviewed the preliminary plat on November 14th and made the recommendation of park fees in lieu of land, with the possible exception of providing a trail easement from the cul-de-sac to 221st Avenue. The park dedication fee is $2,000 per family lot. Park dedication fees will be required to be paid prior to the release of final plat. There is a resolution in your packet along with the certificate of survey, final plat proposal, location map, the city engineer's new comment letter, as well as the comment letter from the Anoka County Department of Transportation engineer. Staff recommends that City Council consider approval of Resolution 2024-09, approval of the final plat for Strandland Farm with the conditions set forth in the resolution.
I move to, go ahead with resolution number 2024-09, final plat of Stratland Farm with
The conditions. The
city engineers.
Yeah, the conditions, the
Conditions are
city
in.
engineer's letter is in the conditions on the
Okay.
resolution.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve resolution 2024-09, approving the final plat for Strandland Farm. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. Agenda item 8.0, are there any community development, engineer, city attorney, finance, and public works? Yes. Mr. Ashford is here. I assume you're gonna speak to these two things, huh?
Yes, sir.
So the 2024 JPA Joint Powers Agreement, street maintenance projects.
Item 8.0E1, consider approving the listed projects to be bid as part of the 2024 North Metro Street Maintenance Program, GPA, street maintenance projects. The cities of Coon Rapids, Andover, Anoka, Brooklyn Center, Columbia Heights, Ham Lake, Matamita, and Fridley entered into a joint powers agreement on February 1st, 2005 for the purpose of collectively bidding certain street maintenance services. The North Metro Street Maintenance Program, GPA, allows smaller cities to achieve more economies of scale in the bidding process and potentially achieve lower bids from contractors for crack sealing, seal coating, and striping, and other street maintenance services. The city of East Bethel joined the group in February of 2008. The city of Coon Rapids is the lead agency for the group, and as the lead agency, they draft the specifications, solicit bids, and provide the necessary documents for member cities to sign in to participate in the program. The agreement is structured such that it permits each city member to accept or reject the bids for their portion of the proposed contract. Each city will pay the contractor directly for their share of the work, and contracts will be awarded separately for the various items. The process is as follows. The city of East Bethel submits their quantities for crack sealing, seal coating, striping to the city of Coon Rapids for inclusion in the collective bid. The city of Coon Rapids develops all bid specifications, solicits bids for the quantities submitted by member cities. Bid specifications follow MnDOT guideline requirements. Each city may modify the quantities they have submitted to maintain the budgets for these projects after the low bid has been identified. Bids for these projects will be open on March 15th, 2024, and the city of East Bethel is required to submit a letter of concurrence to the city of Coon Rapids by April 15th, 2024, authorizing the city's level of participation in the program for 2024. The bid award date will be May 7th, 2024. The city of East Bethel has realized savings of up to 20% over previous costs for these services through the participation in the JPA maintenance program. The following projects are recommended to be bid as part of the 2024 JPA street maintenance program, and these projects have been identified in our 2024 to 2028 capital street improvement plan. We have 150,000 linear feet of pavement markings and 100,000 feet of crack sealing. The estimated cost for the crack sealing and striping the above listed quantities is between $65,000 to $90,000. $100,000 has been budgeted for 2024 in the Roads Capital Fund to cover these projects, with the remaining funds to be used for the 2024 asphalt overlay projects. I've included a location map there showing kind of what we have planned for this year and also our street capital improvement plan.
Do we need to have a vote for approval?
Yeah, we'd like a motion for recommendation for these quantities to be bid. And what happens from then, it'll come back before you in March for final approval once we know the actual dollar amount. So we can change, we can add or lower the quantities at that time as well.
Someone want to make a motion?
I move to, go ahead with the joint powers agreement.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to get the bids, anyway. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. So, 2024 Class 5 gravel road resurfacing projects.
In 2006, the city began a 6-year cycle of gravel road resurfacing for the 14.5 miles of unpaved roads within our system. This cycle allows up to 5 of our 30 gravel roads to be overlaid with new material each year of the rotation sequence. $40,000 was budgeted for gravel road resurfacing for 2023 and 2024 as well. The costs for these projects are for material and delivery. The Public Works Department conducts the grading, compaction, and finishing of the material. Prior to the placement of any new Class 5 material, Public Works staff will reclaim the shoulders and reshape the existing surface. In 2022, the city did the following roads. It was 241st and London Street, Durant Street, and Palisade Street. I got the wrong date on there. For 2024, we're recommending Xylite and 216th, Zumbrota and 219th, and Kissel Street. We're also recommending an application of chloride to Klondike Drive. Based on our previous year's budget and some of the existing pricing, we think we'll have enough to cover all that with our $40,000 budget.
Make a motion to approve the proposed gravel roads for Class 5 resurfacing in 2024 and chloride for Klondike.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. Sorry to keep you up so late. Not that you go to bed early, it's just a long day. And so, city administrator, the SRWMO, what is that? Sunrise River Watershed Management Organization, or something like that, right? 2025 budget. Are you handling it, Matt, or is Brian?
Mr. Look will. Mr. Look will.
Okay.
If you want
Let
to
her
bring my
rip.
screen up.
Yeah, I've got it here. Okay. So the Sunrise River Watershed Management Organization came to us and asked us to approve their budget. I believe the budget is going down by $3. I'm sorry, up by $3. And very reasonable for the work they're doing. This is just administrative approval of this budget to meet their requirements.
Yeah, I covered some of this at my updates at the last meeting.
Yeah. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No one heard. Do we have any staff reports, council reports?
Mr. Mayor, I'll just comment, this last couple of weeks has been rather busy. We're end-of-year audit prep right now going on.
Yep.
With Abdo. They're a good company to work with and understand our processes here. We're having to report to various agencies, those agencies being the county and the state, which are easy to work with, and the IRS, which is not easy to work with. So we're struggling with that, with the changes and everything that the IRS keeps dreaming up, and trying to conform to all that. Mike is doing a great job and keeping frustration under control, I think, so that's good.
You got a good team to work with.
He's excellent at what he does.
Yes, he
The
is.
last 2 weeks been very busy working on the deferred/outstanding code enforcement issues. And there's a few that have been outstanding that might date back to the beginning of time, but nevertheless, we are working towards those and trying to negotiate outcomes where everyone is reasonably happy.
Yeah.
So,
That's the best way.
yeah. So more to come on that, but I have been meeting with people regularly on that and fielding information. I think being the new person on the block, it kind of reinvigorates the arguments, and so that's good because we're able to talk through some of the concerns and hopefully come to some resolutions. So we were able to meet with Mr. Linder, who spoke last meeting, and kind of talk through some of the, maybe the definitional issues that the city has and he has, the differences between the two.
Yeah.
So coming to an understanding, and the meeting was really designed to set everything up and get an understanding of whether we agree or we don't agree, and we can move on specific
Yeah,
topics.
sometimes you agree to disagree.
Right.
It's one of the answers.
The majority of which we agreed on. I think we might have had one or two we disagreed on, but it's, when it comes down to interpretation of code, you know, I think those in the professional realm might have more ability to interpret that than opinions, but nevertheless, we're working towards positive outcomes on all those things. So that's all I have to report.
We're going to be doing a
HRA.
HRA, Housing and Redevelopment Authority meeting right after this.
That don't take long.
But for now, entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I just have one thing. After tonight, when we're talking about capstone and stuff like that, and what I hear, that there's other, and just for an example, I'm not gonna zero out Nate, but just to have him as one of our people that understand the roads and everything else, that I want staff to fill us in with meetings and stuff that they're having with capstone and bring it to us beforehand if possible. Because I mean, just for an example, just with the HOA part of it, I wasn't sure of a lot of it. Matt's helped him with some of it today, which is great. But I mean, they were like in shock, I thought, when we brought it up. It's just stuff like that, like Tim had brought up too. I mean, there's a whole list of things just on the engineering report and stuff like that, that's important. And for myself even, it's like, how do we make sure that they follow everything that they're supposed to follow? I mean, I've been in construction for 50 years and it's like, you gotta babysit everybody. It's just the way it is. And I don't know how you guys do this, but I'd like to know, you know what I mean? Because they can come in and do whatever they wanna do. Hopefully it's right, but a lot of times you gotta be on top of your game to make sure it is right, especially for our residents and everything that can be very important and can affect everything. So that's just my spiel.
Well, I think after the sewer water thing, I know it's history, but after that whole shabacle happened, a lot of trust and a lot of just listening, watching people make decisions and do votes that nobody had a clue. And so now maybe the pendulum's swinging a little too much, but I guess you're better safe than sorry, because like Tim said, once it's here, we're done. And we're kind of left holding the bag. I think Mr. Look's done a bang-up job of following up on stuff. I mean, you get a call, we never used to get a call before, hey, you got any questions? Well, unfortunately, some of the questions you don't think of at the time, and you hate to bring them up here, but it's the only way to get an answer. Without somebody going, oh, you're having meetings up behind our back. No, we're not. There's a lot of stuff going on that we'd like to get answers for. Or we didn't, maybe it's something, I've asked Kevin in the past, well, am I missing something? Did something come out that I'm just not getting? I mean, just the way it is. That being said, now I move to adjourn.
I think you already did.
Well, yeah, but then I opened it back up. We didn't vote on it quite yet.
So we've got a motion, I think we had a second.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any further discussion this time?
Fire department breakfast. This
Yep.
Saturday.
Everybody go to the fire department breakfast, the 27th,
From 8 to
Saturday
11,
morning,
Station 1.
Station 1 on Viking and East Bethel Boulevard. They'll take good care of you, and Route 65's catering, so Brad will take care of you too. All voting in the affirmative to adjourn, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? None heard. So, you're the chairman of the HRA. You want to do it from there?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah. We'll wait for Robert
want
to
me to
go
bring
see
up
a man
the-
about a horse.
Agenda. I've got it up here if you want. You can just put it recorded up there. I can follow, we can follow along. Yeah, that's okay.
It might need to get shut down.
It happens.
Your computer ever start behaving, or is it still wacky?
No, I had to go to the website. I don't have any Carrie stuff pulling up. Yeah, you can click on it all day long.
Carry Frost?
Yeah. It says the HRH packet,
They
but
got
it
a,
doesn't give me the
question for you on
HRH
dog
packet.
licensing. What's your opinion on that? If we eliminate dog licensing and the exposure to the city?
I know, my computer doesn't do this.
Of course, it won't pull it up.
I know, mine's been doing so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're kind of the in-between, between the vet and maybe a apartment complex that says you gotta have rabies and all this
I
sort
know,
of stuff.
I know, they'll miss you like
The
hell.
vet supplies all
Yeah.
that information,
Poor
you
little-
know, whether they
poor little
inoculated them or
rascals won't
not.
be able to get along without you.
And,
You know, I got a ball.
so the work session.
Hey, no having fun up here.
I know,
This is serious business.
try to get ourselves under control.
Call to order HRA meeting for January 22nd, 2024 at 9:08 PM. I entertain a motion for the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have our agenda. Item number 3, appointment of officers, resolution 2024-01.
Who's chairman now?
Brian is,
Oh, I'll take it.
huh?
I'll take it.
Well, Jim is interested.
Oh, go for it, Jim.
That's fine, unless you want it. I got that Sand Hill grant I could vote for.
You wanna be vice chairman, chairperson?
Nah, we'll give that to Tim.
For what, Sandhill?
No, no.
Yeah, we need a bunch of us on.
Yeah, the one that meets
You guys
once a
have
year.
Sand Hill on the brain, okay? We're at an HRA meeting now.
I thought we did this already.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
That's it.
So is there any motion?
Well, Jim, you still wanna be the HRA chairperson?
Sure.
Who wants to be the vice chairperson?
Okay, I'll do it.
With that enthusiastic response, Mr. Miller will be serve as the vice chairperson.
I thought we already did this, but seemed differently.
I was the second secretary. I'll still be the secretary if you guys want, because that was effortless, so that was fine.
Sure. Go for it.
All right, so Smith, chairperson, Miller, vice chairperson, Lewis, secretary. All those in favor we have a motion for this, or?
Yeah.
You have to make a motion for resolution, make a motion to approve resolution 2043-01,
Designating officers.
the officers.
So did you make that motion, Bob?
Brian did.
No, I'm just explaining the motion that needs to be made.
All right, well, I make the motion then,
All right.
to accept resolution.
It's the number 2024 dash.
2024-01, appointing 2024 HRA officers. As chairperson, Jim Smith, vice chairperson, Tim Miller, secretary, Kevin Lewis. All those in favor say aye.
Second.
Aye. Opposed? None heard.
Mr. Mayor, was there
Oh,
a second on that?
Excuse me, Brian, force of habit,
Was there a
sorry.
second on there?
There wasn't, but once everyone has voted, you're fine.
Yeah, I
Sec-
thought I did.
You made the motion, I was
Sorry,
asking
Brian, I
if
did.
there was a second.
Oh,
That was all illegitimate. Brian's the chairperson, not me.
official newspaper.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't have anything, so.
yep.
Oh, here we go.
So
Okay.
did you redo it so we would get a proper vote with you as chairperson?
We can do that.
I want to do it according to Hoyle now.
Bob, you made the motion. Who was the second?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay,
And
so at this point.
Mr. Larson, would I turn over chairperson duties at this point?
Yes.
Well, I was presuming that it was taking an effect into the next meeting, so I'm taking a look
Yeah,
at
it
the
does.
resolution.
Okay,
So,
under,
yep, so you're chair for this meeting, and then it'll be the next meeting
Okay.
that,
Yeah, that's fine.
okay.
Councilmember Jim
Okay.
Smith will take
We'll
the
have to
chair.
Thank
send
you,
Smith
Mr.
into
Larson.
training for a month to get him ready to.
All right.
Sandhill Green.
Moving on to item number 4, approval of minutes from October 23rd. Is there any alterations? If not, I'll
I make a
entertain
motion, we approve the minutes of the
Second.
October 23rd HRA meeting.
Any discussion to the motion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5, resolution 2024-02, designating official newspaper. Mr. Look?
The official newspaper is going to be the, I believe it's the same paper that we use, which is the Union Herald that we use for the regular council meetings.
Yep. Local County Union Herald.
So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to use the Anoka County Union Herald for our newspaper.
Second?
Any discussion?
Yeah, let's hope they can be a little less biased in their
That won't happen.
reporting.
To the motion then, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Item number 6, resolution 2024-03, designating official depositories. Mr. Look?
The two depositories are First Bank and Trust and 4M Fund for the Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Staff would recommend approval.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to resolution number 2024-03.
Second?
Is that to approve it?
Approve it.
Okay. We have a second. Is there any discussion? All those to the motion then say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Item number 7, financial update. Mr. Look.
Well, as you know, you've approved a levy in the amount of $77,000 for 2024 to fund the HRA activities and services. With $31,000 will be transferred from the HRA account to the city general fund to support the administrative duties, staff time, and responsibilities. The unaudited HRA cash account balance as of December 31st, 2023 is $238,066. That is informational for the council.
Anybody have any questions?
After we have a motion, I'll make the motion that we listened to and got the report.
Oh, this is just informational.
I
We
know,
don't
that's what I mean.
need a motion.
But I wanna make a comment about this, and this has bugged me for a while. We have $238,066 cash accrued in the HRA account. Other than budgeting that $31,000 for staff salaries and conferences, the HRA does not have a real budget. This is the case because the HRA has no clear, specific objections or action plan, without which it is little more than a slush fund, in my opinion. Since the East Bethel City Council composes the Board of Commissioners of the Housing and Redevelopment Authority, it is incumbent upon us to deliver such clear objectives and action plan and communicate the same to residents. Led by newly appointed chairperson Jim Smith, let's do so by the date of our next HRA quarterly meeting. Let's come up with an agenda for the HRA, okay? Instead of just collecting taxes, let's have a plan for how to use them to the benefit of the city.
Well, at one point that we did back in 2011, and initially it was for subsidies to help blighted areas, maybe do a facelift to that area down by Route 65, the appliance place. We had said we were gonna use the money and help them kind of clean it up because that was our main street. And after I left office, I'm not quite sure what happened, but then it was, well, we're gonna transfer the money to the general fund. I said, well, why even, as Kevin said, it's a shell game. So unless we have something specific.
Well, let me interject there if I may. This is from the city budget under Housing and Redevelopment Authority. The city is authorized by Minnesota statutes, chapter 469, blah, 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 to establish a Housing and Redevelopment Authority, HRA, to address A, the shortage of decent, safe, and sanitary dwelling accommodations available to persons of low and moderate income and their families at prices and amounts they can afford within the city of East Bethel, and B, substandard slum or blighted areas existing within the city of East Bethel which cannot be redevelopment without government assistance. So the statute gives us the focus anyway, and now all we need to do is identify some credible places to focus some funds on.
Well, we actually did that, and we put in.
And one possibility would be to pay for a survey of the residents about what they want as far as development in the city. That might be a legitimate use of some of that money.
At one point, the
Doesn't
county
cost very
worked with
much.
us, and we did mound systems for people in the Coon Lake Beach area
Get what?
that had failed
Oh,
septic
mound
systems.
systems, oh, okay. I didn't understand what you were saying.
The county still has, the watershed has funds
It
available
was
through the county.
CBDG grants or whatever it was.
To help with septic replacement and stuff like
So
that.
we did kind of do it, and then all of a sudden, we're putting the money back in, and I guess my question is, if we're taking it out for staff and executive and whatever. That stuff's already budgeted in the budget. So why is this extra money needed to say, well, now we're gonna take this and say it's for that? When there's never really been, I mean, if you're gonna do it, you take a bunch of coffee cans and say, okay, this is for building department, this is for finance, this is whatever, and you can account for where the money's going. To just do it and at the end of, in the budget, at the end of each one of the departments, it's got that same sentence, that this money is to be taken out to pay for staff time and executive time, and, well, we're already paying that once, what?
No, they're not being double paid, it's just how you allocate it into the budget.
Right.
And you know Mike and how strict he is about proper accounting and all, so I'm not concerned about it, I'm not concerned about it being, double payment or unclear or anything. It's just a lack of proactive focus for an HRA. And, I think if we put our heads together and ask residents, we can probably find some things to focus on, whether it's septic tank improvements or what have you. I honestly believe that using part of these funds, same with the EDA, with the Economic Development Authority, using some of its accrued funds to survey the businesses in the city is considered a legitimate use of funds. By the same token, using some of the HRA funds for surveying the residents of the city regarding housing development would be an appropriate use of some of those funds. Maybe
Well,
that's one
some
of
of
the
it was
items.
used, there was a loan program for the businesses early on for the septic, sewer water hookups. I think I spoke with Matt about it, I don't know if I brought you in that information. But when we came in, there was no way to do anything, and so we actually did have a program that we worked with the banks where it was a certain amount of interest, low interest loans, so that these companies didn't have to leave the city. 4 of them had to leave anyway because they just didn't have the money. And so I guess a start would be to look on the east side and see who exactly took advantage of that, if anybody did, because they reiterated the program in right around 2015 and said they had a meeting with all the or property owners and that 50% of them agreed to it. Well, 50%, there's only, 10 businesses? So to find that, and then, that's a good block or foundation, and then start saying, okay, maybe that could be a good idea for some of these businesses, help them clean up. Some of them businesses have been here a long time and probably just don't have the money to do what really should be done.
Could this money be used to help some of our seniors with like snow removal stuff when it gets bad, or is that?
I
Is
don't
that
believe
over it?
so. I think
No, I don't
from
think
my
so.
experience, it's just for helping
Helping
pay down
businesses?
assistance on
Businesses?
interest for acquisition of qualified housing. It could be, the city could develop a grant-based program, collect applications for, as I think Councilman DeRoche described, facade improvements or something to buildings that have been defined or declared as blight. But there are a lot of rules around it.
Oh, yeah.
We'd have to specifically dig into what you want to accomplish and see how we can define parameters and come up with policies that would allow that to happen in certain terms, so.
And my primary point is, why don't we do something instead of doing nothing?
Sure.
That's, if you want me to put it in a nutshell, that's what my point is.
Well, Mr. Chair and council members, commissioners, the dollars do have restrictions on them. And so if you don't have a game plan for the dollars, continuing to put dollars into it essentially creates a fund, but you can only spend it on certain activities as allowed by the HRA statutes. As far as the staff time allocations, there is staff time that goes into preparation of, HRA agendas, et cetera, that we can bill back against those dollars. And from a budget standpoint, we don't, say we budget 98% and 2 of it's HRA, so it's, it equals 100 ultimately, but it's not 100 plus 2% or 102%. And so that's why you kind of see it allocated that way. But one of the reasons why we had Karen Skepper here this evening to provide that HRA study is to kind of get this discussion going, right? To kind of get some of the trends of what's going on out there, you know, what's popular, what are people saying that they need, and to what extent do you want your community to provide those needs, right? That's a policy decision for you. And if those creative juices get flowing and you decide, I think we need to, you know, kind of help subsidize a patio home development for senior citizens or something like that. We talked about a Taylor Street project, okay? Something similar to that or, you know, whatever the case may be, you can literally use those dollars for that purpose where you apply the but-for test. Like, but for this help, that project wouldn't come, okay? But we want our community to have that project. So you can take those steps. But again, yes, I would agree with the mayor that yes, we should have a solid plan moving forward. This is what we want to see. This is what we want to invest in. This is what we believe from community input is going to be the best for our community, and this is how that gets done. So these dollars can help that happen.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Well, that's,
Do you need a second? Yeah.
I'll
Is there a
second it.
second? Any discussion? Then to the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.